5, 4, 3, 2, 1, sync.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 252 of the TTV podcast.
That's the number.
I'm Meso.
I'm Var.
I'm Ben.
Incorrect. It's my fault. Didn't post the name order.
Yeah, you really should have done that. Without LJ here, it's just like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah.
I'm Jonathan.
Sigh.
Wow.
I'm Meso.
I'm Var.
I'm LJ.
LJ, you're here?
What was that?
LJ, where'd you come from, dude?
Could it be?
No.
What a twist!
I'm LJ.
Okay. LJ, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, fellow human being. I'm LJ.
Oh yeah. Did we bring back
Somehow
my
that makes
favorite
sense.
version of LJ?
How are you doing today?
Which is the
You
version
know,
where
I'm
he
feeling
just-
LJ. So yeah.
Oh
Tell
man.
your name.
I'm Ben.
I'm Takuma Nuva.
And I'm Tenebrae Invictus.
And this is TTV 252, guest starring LJ, who's totally here. Great.
Guest starring I'm LJ.
Totally here.
I guess.
Dude, totally did.
I think we did. I think we did. Alright.
LJ, why did you show up so late? I don't understand.
And see, this is why, as a host, I'm better than Kahi. Because even when I'm not here, I'm still here.
Even when I'm not here, I'm still here.
Oh man.
Phenomenal.
Incredible.
Alright, well.
Dude, I'm so excited for the
Yeah,
Incredibles movie.
LJ's a little quiet. I can barely understand.
I mean, you can turn them up
Yeah, I know.
individually.
Alright. Well, how's everybody? How's everybody doing this week?
Doing pretty good.
Doing cool, yeah.
Nice. Anything interesting happen?
I'm really glad that I was having some problems with Audacity before we started this, because we got some great, like, tech work done before we started that really needed to happen.
That's true, yeah.
Like, imagine we were, like, midway through the podcast, and Kai's like, Takuma's literally sounds like a robot right now. I can't
Yeah,
do
that
this.
would have been terrible.
Meso's echo is ruining the recording. Would have been nice. Yeah, not much has happened this week. It's just been the usual.
I'm finished.
Yeah, the usual.
E3 happened.
Oh yeah, E3 did happen. I totally forgot
Oh,
about
do
that.
you want to talk about that for a little
Yeah,
bit? Just like the
whoa.
couple things we're excited for.
I'd like
What
to
a
do a full-on
disappointment.
special about it, but we maybe
Yeah, we're
wanna
gonna do a whole
squeeze it.
thing for
Do you
it.
wanna-
I don't know when though.
tomorrow? Want to do tomorrow? I think I'm free tomorrow night. We can stream.
around.
Yeah, I'm
All
free.
right,
tomorrow night.
we'll see. We'll see
right,
how
then.
it goes. But I'm done on my wedding tour. I did 3 weddings in 3 weeks, which is why I've been gone for a while.
Wow.
Kahi, as per usual, that's really stupid.
Dude, LJ's so funny. Oh my god, LJ, you're so funny.
LJ.
You're like my new favorite.
I think even way more. You've been
It's probably
You've been to way more than 3 weddings.
It feels like it's been
I
way
feel
more than
like-
3. Are you sure it's
Well,
only been
I was
3?
gone for 1 extra week to help like set up for a wedding. So I went for an extra wedding to like we set up this thing because my dad was officiating, so we had to work and we do it. And then like next week we actually had it. But I mean I'm sure it's probably stupid as someone who has no friends. The idea of being happy for other people, going to enjoy their great moment in
Certainly
life. But
possible.
no, but for real, 3 weddings, 3 weeks. That is insane. There is so many
too
people
long.
getting married.
That's like an entire month.
It was essentially an entire
I know,
month. I've been
using all your
I've been gone.
weekends for that.
Yeah,
couldn't
dude,
do
you
that.
need to like calm down. Do you even need to go to all these
Yeah,
weddings?
they're-
Here's my thing. Are these people your real like I can understand going to like one actual
Right.
friend's wedding, right? Cool. And that's awesome. But then you have another actual friend who just so happens to have his wedding
okay,
scheduled
let-
a week later, and you're also going to that one too.
Let
It's
me-
like,
let me-
okay. Like getting a little in the realm of unbelievability here, all right? And now there's a third friend that you suddenly have that has a wedding scheduled 2 weeks after the first one and only 1 week after the second one?
Let me
That's
put
pretty
it to you this way.
insane.
Okay, so here are the
What
three
is
people.
this?
First, I am admittedly a very outgoing person, so fair enough. I might have too many friends, but the first wedding was a person who was like very close to her, my family. She went to college while I was growing up. She stayed with my family for a while. My dad officiated the wedding. She's like essentially family. So I had to go to that one. The second wedding was an older guy. He was a pastor at my old church, but he was the guy that he taught me Photoshop essentially when I was about 11 or 12. I went there and for a year we worked together. He taught me how to do everything in Photoshop and everything. And so obviously we'd been in the same church for like almost 20 years. So when he got married, of course I had to go, it was part of it. And then the last one was my roommate, a very good friend of mine, and his fiance, who also a very good friend of mine, and they got married. And so it was like a thing where I'm like, I've lived this guy for a year. I can't not go to his wedding, obviously. And it was a beautiful wedding and everything. But
So wait, are you going to another wedding today?
no, that
or
was
is it
yesterday.
over and
That
you're
was
returning
yesterday.
home?
I am now. So the wedding was about 3 hours away, and so me and my other roommate, we went up, and then we're staying at my other roommate's girlfriend's house right now because it was like real close to where that venue was.
Wait, so the second one was like the African.
The second one's the
wedding,
African wedding, yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. If any of you
yeah.
saw my Instagram stories,
What a wedding.
yeah, follow me on Instagram at @theJonathanJuan. I guess I don't really post a lot
Wow,
on
man.
Instagram, but there you go. It was a traditional African wedding. He's from Zimbabwe, so we had all his family came out, and it is incredible when you see when they do the speeches, right? They have the best man speech, you have the mom speech. Every time someone gets up to speech, they start singing and dancing as they're coming up. It's crazy. It's incredible. And then they all sing in the natives. I think it was Zimbabwean. I don't know what the official language is there, but
Live studio audience.
yeah. So
Austin is born is like, you should become a wedding planner, which I can totally see now. You know what's been a good wedding and what's been a bad at this rate.
honestly,
Sure, you got
I do. I
experience.
actually, fun fact, last week my best friends got engaged. I went back to Illinois. They got
No
engaged.
way.
Oh
I'm
my
going.
Can you tell them
God.
to
I'm
not
going to
do
another
it,
wedding in
please?
October.
For
And
our
these,
sake?
and this guy,
Stop it.
this guy is like
You're killing me with
legitimately
this.
one of my absolute best friends. So it's like a thing. I'm in the wedding party this time, so I've got to go to that one. So
I'm gonna go on strike. If I ever get married, I'm gonna make sure I invite everybody but you, just to sort of level the
Keep you
playing
there.
field a little bit.
Keep you away.
well, someone has to do the podcast while you're
We
getting
gotta
married.
play
So
catch up.
I will
Exactly.
host
Someone's gotta
the
be there.
podcast by myself. You guys get married. You go be
Solo
there.
John
Right.
podcast.
It'll be the leg cast.
I'll just go on. I'll just
Leg
go on
cast.
long rants about what should really
The
happen.
leg cast, where you only talk about legs ever. That's the only content. Make sure everybody that once you're married, don't invite Kahi. You just gotta make sure that's a whole thing.
Hey, John, if you were to actually run your own podcast, just by yourself while everyone else is at the
TTK.
wedding, what would you call it?
It would be Juan Minute.
That is stupid. That is so incredibly stupid.
Be 1 minute long.
That's great.
I actually think it's pretty clever. Thank you.
John minute.
I'm wondering how long we should keep up the charade with LJ. Or just
You
I
listen.
feel like
How many people actually
here.
believe he's here, though? I feel like everyone's kind of gotten.
that's what I'm wondering. That's what I'm wondering because there's someone out there who's this episode is their first episode ever. That's the thing, and they are probably so confused.
Hold on, you got any more insights? Help shed some light on this mystery.
He's LJ, duh.
Any more insightful remarks?
I'm doing well, fellow human being.
Wadden was like, essentially, you don't even need to invite me. You just a wedding summons me. It's like saying Bloody Mary 3 times into a mirror. I just appear there.
Incredible.
Nice. I feel like that's what you'll be telling the police after they arrest you
After
for
crashing
crashing someone's wedding.
Totally.
John's gotten through trickier situations than that.
Yeah, I mean, I've encountered the police.
He's never been arrested though.
Stage that one time he can sneak into a wedding.
That is
Like
true.
in that concert that one time. Nah, totally. Who tells you that you can't be at a wedding? Just avoid the bride and groom, and just make up a story about how you know them. Totally.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Unless as long as you avoid the bride and
Unless
groom.
it's well, that depends on the size of the wedding.
That's true.
That's true.
If it's a small wedding, not a lot of people, everyone knows everybody.
I mean, you could also say you're someone's plus one.
guys-
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
unless
true.
there was no +1 on the invite.
You're
You
right.
can't always have
You're
a
right.
plus
You know,
one
I mean,
dude.
like this could.
You could
this
say
could
that you're
fail.
the bartender's friend.
This
or
could
something.
fail.
bartender's
Bartender's friend.
Yes,
Barfriender. Actually, 2 of the weddings.
Wow.
Sorry, 2 of the weddings I went to
Oh
did
my
not have
God,
bars.
Now you're
so.
actually okay. So I'm not gonna name the place, obviously, but there is a place I've worked at before. They do weddings and stuff, and it's not a bad place. But some of the people who work there drive me absolutely nuts because they will go and start, they're working the wedding, but they will go and start eating the food or taking home the wedding cake before the reception's even over.
Bad form. Bad form.
Oh. Yeah,
That's
that's
just-
not good.
That's just hacky.
Honestly, that doesn't sound like a very good idea.
LJ would probably do that.
You probably would.
Take the food.
Ironically enough, I feel like this LJ is saying pretty much the exact same level of quantity and quality content.
And
that
quality.
normal LJ.
All that
LJ would
quality
say.
content.
I think it's just the that initial veneer of what's the word I'm looking for? Not enthusiasm,
I think
amusement,
all we need.
Yeah.
which will wear off over time once we're past the
This
honeymoon
LJ is
stage.
consistently funny.
It's because he's consistent
Because
in everything.
It's not LJ.
Only because it's new.
Let's make it clear right now. This isn't LJ. This is EljayBot.
the best
Yeah.
version
I thought
of
that,
LJ.
I thought we
The
were gonna go
epic
for, like,
return
this
of
is
EljayBot.
JL.
How long has
True
it been?
LJ
I
bot,
literally
and
think it's
he
been
has
200 episodes since
It's been
EljayBot.
hundreds
It's
of
been 200
episodes.
episodes
Pretty
since
sure.
the last time we had
Because
LJ
like
on.
one of the lines for the last one was like, "Mirka, you need to calm down," which is my favorite line for that. But that's when Mirka was still here. So.
You're right. Yeah,
Did-
it's whatever episode
It's
we
like
had Mirka. Like, we had
2011.
Mirka a long time
2011.
Man,
It's been like
did he program him with any other quotes that are applicable?
Oh yes, of course.
he's got to save some
Right.
material, Meso.
EljayBot has quite an arsenal up his sleeve.
Guys, stop calling me LJBot. It's fairly evident that I'm a
Oh,
Oh, LJ bot broke. Dang it.
never mind about that
So
arsenal.
someone in the live studio audience brought up like this joke about me objecting to a wedding. Fun fact: they don't do that anymore. None of the ones that have ever had the thing, object now or hold your hold your peace. They don't do that.
There's no contest.
Well,
You just have
okay.
to deal with it.
There's a reason for that.
Go
All right.
on.
At least from where I come from, it comes down to basically like it's supposed to be one method or another, and I'm guessing like it just kind of got dropped over time. But do you know what the bands of marriage are?
Yes, I do. But explain it to the rest of the audience. They might not know.
Okay. Okay. So basically, there's kind of two ways you can go about it. The one that everyone knows is, at the wedding, is if anyone objects to this union, whatever, speak now or forever hold your peace. That's one option. If you don't want to have that in the wedding, instead you have what's called the bands of marriage, where for like, when you go to church on Sunday or whatever, at the churches where the people to be wed participate, for the 3 weeks prior to the wedding, they, your pastor, priest, whatever, will announce to the congregation, basically, such and so intend to get married. So if anyone knows of a reason why they cannot be joined in holy matrimony, basically contact me. So, you can either have it announced the 3 weeks before the wedding, or you can have that bit during the wedding where anyone can jump up and say, no,
I do believe that's more of a
I want Jesse's girl.
Real quick, I do think that is that's a more of a traditional Catholic thing. I believe because I know in
Well, I'm guessing it.
I know
I'm guessing it kind of moved it kind of became the thing where it's just the bands of marriage announced instead of the thing during the ceremony. But then that just kind of got dropped over time. That's what I am imagining.
possible.
Happened.
I know I was in weddings not too when I was a kid I went to some weddings because my dad is a pastor, so our family gets invited to all these weddings of alumni and people going through. But when I did that, there were some people that did the objection thing then. Now I haven't. And now that I'm actually going to weddings of my friends, I'm actually doing that. Don't see that.
You actually was at a wedding where people did the objection
Yeah,
thing?
well, no one
someone
actually
stood up
objected.
and
No,
said,
sorry,
"I object."
they said it. If anyone speak now, if ever hold your peace. They used to say that. They don't say that anymore. or at the very least at the weddings I've been at, they don't say
Wouldn't
that.
it be interesting to be at one with the?
There was a Reddit thread about that, and that was one of the funniest Reddit threads. Apparently,
Objection.
one time
Object.
they said, "Oh, object now, hold your peace," and like one of the friends stood up, and one guy was like, "Oh, I've always been in love with you," yada yada yada. Super awkward. They had to escort him out. Another time, her best friend stood up and said, "I can't let you go through this. He's been cheating on you with me for like the past 5 years or something like that." I was what? At the wedding?
What a wedding.
I mean, you can't. What are you gonna do for that? All your friends and family are there.
Yeah,
I like
that's crazy. There was that other wedding that happened where like the freaking the wife ran out on the dude to marry Spider-Man instead, and that was terrible.
Wow, you thought it was
Man, Wicked the West is back.
I hope if I die young that I can live on immortalized in a soundboard for the podcast.
You want to be doing it?
Yeah, I know, it's
I'll
like-
put your brain. I'll upload it.
Yeah, go full director with it.
So I gotta point out, Wadden posted a fantastic picture in the studio audience.
Yeah, he did.
It's great. You gotta have that in the video with the caption and everything. It's
I'll
just
put it in.
fantastic.
I will put it in. Great.
You know,
Perfect.
one thing that there was.
Well,
Oh, sorry, go on. We'll move
no, I was
this
just
along.
like, I was gonna transition.
Yeah,
if you weren't.
Well,
done,
I just have one last comment about weddings. We've been talking about this a lot. A lot of my friends are getting married. There's a talk about some people have their first kiss when they get married, and like they get married and like you might now kiss the bride. It's the first time they kiss.
Really?
What?
Okay, that is stupid. That is so incredibly
That is
stupid.
That was questionable.
Yeah, LJBot's right. What are you
Here's
talking about,
like
man?
here's my.
Wait, what? What's
Yeah.
the point?
Well, it's just like I don't know. Some people just save it.
First
They save
kiss
their
when
first
you
kiss
get
when they
married.
get married. And I was talking about that.
Isn't there
There
like
is
a
a show on
about that?
TLC called like, and here's my logic with that.
The first
Like, what are
kiss?
you
Here's my
getting
logic
at?
with that. Okay, a friend of mine said, you know, we've been thinking about this, and I was like, here's why I wouldn't do that. I'm not great at basketball. I don't like. Other sports I'm okay with, but basketball, it's just like just shooting the hoop and stuff. Obviously, you know, it favors taller people, so I'm not in that target demographic. But shooting a basket, it's pretty hard. If I had to shoot a basketball for the first time, I would not wait until my friends and family had all gathered, and the guys are like, "Hey, you know, friends and family, we're gathered here today to watch Jonathan Dwan shoot this basketball. You may now shoot this basketball." That would not be the first time I ever shot a basket.
That
wouldn't be
that's
my
your
thing.
mentality behind it. I think if,
You're at your marriage and you like headbutt
Exactly,
the girl
it's
when
like-
you go to kiss her,
Like,
and she
if,
falls
like-
down.
okay, I think you're putting way too much weight on the importance of such an act.
no,
If you're,
I'm not saying I'm that worried about it. I'm saying
Just
that like we
saying.
were talking about this and it came up a thing, and I was like, you know what? I feel like if your first time you're gonna do something, I just wouldn't choose that to be in front of all my family and friends. The first time I did anything, literally anything, if I'm doing it like in front of everyone I've ever known that really cares about me, I'm gonna
It's like
practice at least
anything that
once.
could go wrong just will
Exactly.
go
I just
wrong.
like
It's just like because I'm thinking about my first kiss, and I'm like, that would be really embarrassing
Yeah.
to have performed in front of everybody
yeah,
I
exactly.
knew.
Yeah, you tell him, Var.
Hey, this is perfect. He's like, EljayBot is like, you know, venting on me and kissing Var's butt. It's perfect. It's exactly LJ.
Is that wait? Was that LJ's first kiss?
Wow.
No, it wasn't. He's been doing it for
Very
a long
nice.
time. His lips
Real
have been
talk.
glued
I
to
really
Var's
hope
butt.
Craig records Oxbox, or else it's gonna be painful to edit this.
Oh
It'll be
yeah,
okay,
rip
man.
you, dude.
When I
I think we
spoke
do
the
that.
other
You
day,
have all the sound bites already. All you have to
when
do
I
is just
spoke the other
import
day,
them
I was like, "You're only gonna do like 3 sound bites, right?" He was like, "Yeah," and I said like 12.
Rip.
All right.
It's fine, dude. It's fine.
I feel like
Okay, hold up. It's fairly evident that short legs are the best option here. There's no contest.
There's no. You got assassinated.
You pulled the mic out of his hand.
Like, listen,
Stop talking.
you should have played that when I was talking about basketball. He was like, well, you know, basketball favors tall people. There's short legs are the best option here.
Yes.
Totally.
All right.
All right.
What
Just need some
say you
flubber on your
guys?
shoes.
I'm gonna transition.
Yee. Speaking of
do
short
it.
legs.
All right. Let's transition into this week's BIONICLE G3 discussion. So every week we have a disclaimer. A BIONICLE
Oh, good. Time for
G3
my nap.
or Brickonicle project is a fan-made reimagining of BIONICLE as a system theme for the purpose of podcast discussion. It's not official. It's not officially endorsed by Lego. It's a completely our own thing, and we're working with our community to create this theme from the ground up and figure out how realistically Bionicle could be interpreted as a system theme. That's about it. And we mentioned we'd talk about E3. I see some people in the chat, oh, they forgot about E3. We're just going to do a separate video about it.
Yeah.
TLDR, disappointment, except Metroid Prime 4.
Totally.
There was some good stuff. But
I would say
Nintendo won this year, but
it was meh. It was meh this year.
Nintendo won for anybody who actually cares about Nintendo. It was like there will never be
was a good
there will
showing
never
for
be a
Nintendo.
conference as good as that again. It's just not going to happen. But
It's only
For anybody
downhill from here.
for anybody who doesn't care, there were other options, and we'll hash that out tomorrow. For now, Brickonicle. What
Yeah,
are we going to
Brickonicle.
discuss this week? Last week we talked about some backstory, some personality, some fleshing out of the characters for Gali, a little bit for Lewa. This week we're going to go more in depth with Lewa and maybe figure out Onua and Pohatu a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah, I actually think we should touch upon both Gali and Lewa a little bit more. I do have a couple of ideas for those two characters.
Let's hear these pitches. Go, go, go.
But obviously, yeah, I think we should touch on, who did you say, Onua and Pohatu?
Yeah, they're what's left.
Because I at the moment I feel like we've got some really good grounding for Tahu and Kopaka as far as how they fit into society, what their backstory is, what leads up to them becoming the Toa and everything. Not so much for Lewa and Gali just yet. So obviously those will sort of develop, but I do have a couple of ideas. So last week we talked about Gali and how she is essentially this sort of arbiter in her region, where there's sort of this very high matriarchal status on religion over there, and the arbiters are sort of like the police force of that region, and Gali is a part of those people. Did we decide I guess would the arbiters also have religious, or not religious, political power too? I would imagine they would.
I would say some, but there's higher ones. It's the top ranking ones have political power.
Right. Okay.
Led by a
Yeah,
matriarch.
I guess that makes more sense to have a separate political thing, but then the arbiters are kind of outside of that circle almost, where they have their own
Right.
authority.
Think about this: the chief of police, is might be involved with the mayor and doing that kind of thing, but a normal police officer does not have political
Right.
power. So it goes up in scale, and the higher you go up, the more broader things you deal with, the more authority you have on the larger matters, and then it turns into politics.
Right. So I mean, I would imagine that the arbiters definitely have some of a very strong sort of social not hierarchy, but social status symbol when it comes to the other Nehoans, where being an arbiter is something of high honor, right?
Right, exactly. It's one of the highest things you could do. I would say.
Okay, I would think so too. Okay, so one of the thoughts that I was having before is that we had already discussed our Toa characters and how prior to becoming Toa they exhibited zero elemental abilities at all, unlike the majority of the population, which does. Originally, when we initially pitched that, we had always imagined the Toa kind of being outsiders in a sense, or ostracized by their communities.
Yes.
That doesn't really happen so much with Tahu and Kopaka. I would say maybe Kopaka could his lack of elemental ability could be touched upon.
Why he's not worthy?
Why he's not worthy? Yeah, I think that could be, or maybe there's some people with reservations towards that or something. Tahu, it didn't really. I think I would think for Tahu it's more of a thing of endearment that he doesn't have any elemental powers, but has been able to achieve so much prior to the whole event. So with Gali, I was thinking, okay, so she's in this group of people, the arbiter group of people. They've got this high symbol, very high honor, but she also doesn't have any elemental powers. So perhaps instead of necessarily making her an arbiter like the rest of the arbiters would, perhaps she is an arbiter sort of in name, but isn't really treated the same way as the rest of them would be, at least amongst their group of people. And I feel like maybe she could almost be sort of, I don't want to say a secretary, but sort of a lower tiered person in that that group.
She's been denied
specifically
promotion a
with the
bunch of
Nehoans
times.
though.
Yeah.
And I think this is sort of a thing that Gali kind of keeps to herself outside of Neho. So once she becomes the Toa or she's like communicating with everybody, you think that she is this arbiter, she's this super high social person, this super honorable thing, but really she is in a sense, but not quite treated with that level of respect by her own people. An example of sort of like this sort of social status that I'm imagining is kind of like we recently watched Transformers Animated. And the way Optimus Prime in that show is treated compared to like Sentinel Prime and Ultra Magnus, that relationship I think would really work in a sense here, where you've got like the Autobots and there's the Elite Guard and there's Prime, who is technically a part of the Elite Guard but isn't really part of the Elite Guard, and they kind of really just sort of like push him around and kind of ignore him, kind of cast him off.
Elite Guard washout.
Yeah, he's sort of the washout. That's kind of how I'm imagining Gali to be, where she has the skill, the clarity, the brains, the smartness, but she just doesn't have the elemental powers. Which is
and then later on we can introduce Maku, whatever, to be like the Sentinel to Gali's Optimus. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, you could.
No, go
on. And I was thinking of like Helrix being like the leader of the Arbiters, where she like has a lot of respect for Gali, but also is sort of like, you know,
she's
really hard.
Magnus.
Yeah, very Ultra Magnus-ish, where she's like really hard on Gali and everything, and like very kind of uptight and stuff, and Gali's always trying to work to get her attention and that kind of thing. But yeah, that's sort of like how I'm imagining that scenario.
I still like I like the concept of that character. I feel like, well, I did grow attached to the idea of Helrix being part of the like a more secret organization. You know, like Varys and like everything, because like that was Helrix's original role, was kind of like the secret keeper, or like in charge of a secret organization going underneath, like a Black Ops division almost. But like I feel like, you know, you could have Nakama.
Yeah, there are plenty of other characters.
Yeah, there's I was only working off of last week when Helrix was the one that was suggested.
Yeah, it could totally be Nakama.
Right.
So the actual person it is doesn't matter too much.
Right. Doesn't matter. It's just a name. Yeah. No, I totally get that.
Holly,
actually,
yeah,
in the wise words of EljayBot before he says it, I like it. It's a cool idea.
I like it.
There it is.
There it is. So I was thinking in terms of what that would add to her character per se. I would imagine that she sort of retains this sort of level of like, not really a pompous attitude, but kind of a pompous attitude when it comes to dealing with the other Toa, because they don't know how she is actually seen by the other Arbiters. So she still kind of keeps this level of authority with her, despite not really having it. She kind of is blowing, you know, air into the water sort of thing, where like she's sort of
like
sees herself as
a little bit.
Yeah, she's sort of sees herself as a bit more important than she really is. But it's not really so much of a like an arrogance as much as it is sort of like a like she's just sort of I guess
I think about overcompensating for what was taken away from her, because like she should have that. She does her job well. It's only because like she was born with this no elemental power thing that she's like.
I do think we also have. Here's something that will be really cool, because I like having, you know, with Wonder Woman and everything, you know, it was great that they didn't focus too much on the you're a girl aspect. It's going to be really nice for Gali to be, now that she has elemental powers, more powerful than anyone else so far. She comes back to the, you know, the Nahoans, and now she is like the avatar of water. She's able to, like, you know, she is the Toa of water, able to do all these powerful things. And it won't necessarily be like oh, you know, you couldn't do this because you're a girl, and now you come back and now you're able to have all this power. It's more of her just like, you know, because there's all these other women in the, you know, primarily.
And that's why I'm really glad that the society is matriarchal in a sense too, because I feel like it's easy to look at the suggestion and be like, oh, you're reducing her role because she's the girl, but there's not really. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's just the character, you know. It's right.
Yeah, it's part
that's
of
her
arc.
Character arc. I am looking forward to that, like that kind of revelation. She comes back and she's able to like literally, you know, move the ocean and the tides compared to the other.
So I kind of imagine her personality as being sort of a like sort of hiding behind a shield almost, where like to the Toa she seems like she's this really reserved person, really kind of very strict, more like standing and everything, like she's
but in
really,
reality
like,
she
to the code.
Tell bad jokes.
Yeah, but in reality she's actually kind of a goofball. She's silly, she has a lot of jokes, and she's sort of like, because she's not the person of high honor that she wants to be, or that she wants people to think she is. That's just not who she is, and she was never treated like that before. So she has this air about her where she kind of tries to convey that she's this really like awesome person, but she's not really. And I think part of her arc would be learning to sort of chillax and kind of let go of that and just sort of, have more fun with her life and sort
Be
of
yourself.
Be yourself and be a bit more open to the other Toa. So that was my thoughts on Gali, at least.
Fine to me. That could be cool.
Ja. For Lewa, I haven't really thought too much about her character. The one thought that I did have is that I still want her to be this sort of Aladdin-ish character that's obviously orphan, obviously like stealing to survive and everything. I did think about, you know what? Lego might not be very happy with one of their main heroes being a thief. So I was thinking, what if there is a small, like a miniature arc where Lewa sort of has to learn better ways of living, I guess, in their society or something.
Possibly.
Instead of
I
like
think so.
stealing from other people. So there's like this sort of moral lesson to be learned there. And I was wondering, like, maybe since Lewa lives by herself, is sort of ostracized from society, what if in a kind of very classical, like, Star Wars-ish side kind of thing, if she meets up with sort of this, like, other person who's not really ostracized from society, but, like, self-exposed from society. It's kind of like this solo character that likes to live by themselves, and that person could be where she learns a bit more, moral standings after they meet. She learns not to steal. She also learns how to fight, maybe.
So I'm like a mentor.
Yeah, like a mentor figure.
Who are you thinking?
So
Kinda
are
like
you
old
thinking
Ben.
like Stick?
Sort of like Stick, yeah. And I kind of imagine like this person in a way. I kind of imagined it being like a Genji and Zenyatta sort of thing, where like Genji's sort of not this great person before meeting Zenyatta, but then after meeting Zenyatta, you have the real Genji that like know and love.
Right.
So yeah, so in a similar way, like an old Ben, like a Stick, sort of like a hermit type character.
You thinking anybody
I
in
am thinking-
particular from Bionicle lore or a new character?
I was actually thinking the guy should be a little cuckoo, a little more Yoda-ish than old Ben.
Senile.
Yeah.
Senile.
And I was thinking a perfect name for the character would be Bing Zack.
Yes.
Wow.
Nice.
Things
I
that the
actually like
wise
that a
old
lot.
mentor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ever since mentioning Stick, I am envisioning this guy who's like blind and can only like see things through air currents.
Dude, that's actually really cool. I like that a lot.
Nice.
Ever has like a blindfold or like just like a broken mask maybe or something like that, but he's able to sense things through the air.
I'm
and,
down. Things that
He's
the
taught
wise
me how to
old
still
mentor.
sense things without having any elemental powers.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and maybe like he teaches Lewa not necessarily how to control air since she can't do that, but how to feel the air, the energy around her or something, how to like exist in their region without needing to use elemental abilities. That kind of
That
thing.
could be his trick.
Just sort of teaches
that
her.
could be his, like his elemental power manifested.
Yeah, just sort of
Like
teaches
his
her how
own
to
thing is tune the air.
be one with the element without having to use the element.
Totally.
So in that sense, because with Lewa becoming a Toa, she's obviously at a lower power set and skill set than the rest of the Toa. So I feel like it should be important that she has some kind of knowledge of how, like, basics, how to fight, how to like survive on her own, that kind of thing.
Definitely.
Hardcore.
Because yeah, if she's just some random kid with no abilities at all, it would be hard to explain how she would learn. She has to have some kind of starting point. So I figured that would be
fine to
a good way to do that.
Definitely. All right then.
Yeah.
Gonna like keep going with those two. Switch to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel
No,
like
like,
Gali's
sure,
pretty good. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on those two characters at all, or anything that conflicts with my thoughts.
Yeah, I must echo that. Not at the moment. I don't really.
I think like definitely having
I got nothing. No opposition.
training for combat against the guards maybe. And what's the air village name again?
Kane.
Kane. Well, I think like that's like, I mean, she needs to fight against someone. So being on the run from guards trying to kick her, you know, kind of like Aladdin was for a while. Having that presence be what do we say? Their transport, right?
Yeah.
Would they be
they're
transporting
transport
food?
society.
They'd be transporting like that kind of thing. So yeah, we could kind of like tie that in together. How she like initially she's stealing from the transport ships, kind of going here and far from the region, and then she gets taught by Bingzak how to not do that anymore.
Yeah, how to live off the land, how to
How to live off the land,
appreciate
right? How to
where they are.
Kahi,
How to-
as per usual, that's really stupid.
Shut up,
Shut up,
EljayBot. That's really smart.
Go away, LJ
Wow.
Bot. We don't like you anymore.
The honeymoon phase.
Wow, Meso. Gosh, dang it.
Yeah, LJ Bot's annoying.
LJ not.
But yeah, so
building not.
so what, in terms of like the guards, what were you like thinking as far as like the conflict though? Because I'm assuming that Lewa wouldn't.
Well, I mean,
fight
like
the
you know,
guards
obviously,
with the people.
well, like initially, I was thinking initially at first that's how like the guards could kind of be running the orphans off the streets, you know, like you know the beggars or something, like as a transport place they could have. I mean, I'm thinking of like other cities where it is like, you know, it's certain orphans or homeless or that kind of thing is very looked down upon, especially for like something that's rich on commerce and going back and forth from places where they probably have a lot of people visiting the city, a lot of richer people visiting the city and the village of Kane,
Yeah,
right?
it's kind of.
So possibly they want to keep these people off the streets and they want to have them, you know, like or toss them in jail or something. And so that's how, you know, that's Bingzak's whole thing is teaching her how to evade these guards and everything. And so she could become skilled at, you know, kind of like parkour in a sense in the village. And that's she carries that over, and you know she's able to use that for elemental powers when she gets those.
Okay. Sounds good.
So
I
her
see.
her skill set, she would be very, you know, flexible, very you know, like a lot of dexterity, a lot of agility. She already knows that innately, and so then she uses that to you know to for elemental abilities. But she does still run away from responsibility, which is going to be running away is like a thing that she's just naturally used to. She doesn't, you know,
Right,
confrontation never works out for her, you know, obviously enough. So
Ja.
Yeah, for sure. I did have another thought. I don't know about this one, but that potentially maybe since Bingzak's old, Onua is one of our older characters as well. Perhaps they have some kind of like connection with each other or like knowledge. But I didn't really think any further than that.
Bingzak and Onua.
Yeah,
I
just
don't know why
Bingzak
they-
knows Onua or something.
I mean, I'm sure there's some convoluted way we could have them like have met before, but I don't really know like what that would add to the story.
I know this
Yeah.
guy who knows this guy who knows this guy.
The only reason I think I had that thought was because, like, at the moment, since Bingzak's sort of like a self-imposed hermit from the rest of society, doesn't really fit in with the Kaneans as much. And I feel like since he's teaching Lewa all about living off the land, being, you know, one with the element, being with yourself, those all seem like very Earth ideology.
Interesting.
So I was thinking, okay, maybe Bingzak was friends with Onua, friends with the Earth region or something, and he's sort of carrying those like that mentality into his life, and that's why he's ostracized.
whenever you
himself
do
from-
a thing where characters know each other beforehand, you do need to make it logical, not just
Yeah.
so coincidental that they just happen to know two of the main characters.
right, of course.
So I am
It would
thinking
make
like
sense
what
if
we could
Bingzak
do.
was in like an exile or like a self-imposed hermit. Maybe he'd go to another village.
Well, it could be that he's seeking out Lewa after he realizes that she does not have any elemental powers, just like his old friend Onua. And there's, you know,
Yeah.
that could be that recognition, that pattern that there have been in each village. There's one person like any elemental power once every generation.
I like
You know,
that a
there's
lot.
always like, so he kind of knows a bit more about the prophecy or that kind of thing, but he's not letting that on. He could be very well studied in the prophecy, as Onua is as a monk, you know, but left that all behind once he was exiled for something.
Fair enough. Fine by me.
I like that a lot. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
Not too bad.
I like it.
Yeah. All right. Also, another thing back on Gali real quick, just one little thing to touch upon. I noticed a lot of comments in the last episode where a lot of people were saying the big difference between Onua and Gali would be that Onua is very wise Gali is not wise, but very smart. And I think that still can carry over with the current pitch, and that like she's really having to survive on her brains alone when it comes to being part of the Arbiter without any elemental powers. And I think that would be like her one advantage versus the other Arbiters, as well as her Toa friends, that she's very smart. She's very quick thinking. She can talk her way out of situations pretty well too.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, well, part of the thing with intelligence, though, I would say like we can have that carry over too. We had a chart made up a while ago, I think last week, by someone who kind of tried to rank the Toa in terms of intelligence and wisdom and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I would say with Gali's wisdom can be applied in different ways, partially. Wisdom can be, there's a wisdom when dealing with people. There's a wisdom with dealing with events. There's a wisdom of dealing with politics. There's different kinds of wisdom. I would say that, like, necessarily, Gali, while she is quick thinking, is also wise, but in a different way that Onua is wise. She is she has a wisdom that kind of, that draws from, and I think you can have the element of being quick thinking and everything to her, but like we can kind of shape the wisdom, and old Gali was wise and old Onua was wise, and never really made that distinction between wisdom for both of them, Mm-hmm. So we could have, I would say that Gali's wisdom could be with, with like this, what to do in a political realm, but she's not able to really use that because as an Arbiter that's treated lowly on the scale, she's never been able to, to see how conflict resolution and all that larger people has. And Onua's wisdom could be with people and with, and that's how he's the peacekeeper necessarily among the group. Well, Gali really isn't. Gali's a bit more of a, her wisdom will come into effect later on in the Civil War, where she is actually able to make decisions on how conflict should be resolved between villages. Possibly.
Keep forgetting there's actually a civil war. It's like coming.
Yeah, that's a coming. It's a brewing.
That's coming. This
aforementioned chart is pretty interesting. I'm not sure if we want to delve into it, but I'll put it in the video if people want to see it.
Yeah, I think the chart works in some instances and doesn't in others. For instance, I would I guess with our pitch before about Gali being this Wonder Woman-esque character, the chart makes sense, but I would actually personally move Gali behind Tahu and Kopaka when it comes to combat skill, and I would move Lewa all the way back for combat skill.
Yeah, Lewa's more about agility than,
honestly,
I
would put Gali pretty far in combat skill.
Yeah, I would too,
because I feel like that's.
She's
so
second.
She'd be second place.
She's not like a military leader or whatever. Like,
yeah,
Tahu should be
I was thinking about like,
it's like Tahu's only
the whole thing.
Yeah, Tahu's literal entire life is all about combat, which isn't necessarily what Gali's is. That's why I was thinking Tahu would be ahead of her.
That could be fair.
If anything, Kopaka is tied with Gali and not Tahu.
I just imagine this thing where like when Gali returns back to Naho, and she's challenged by all of the other people. She fights possibly Holly or whoever her the other Prime is, her equivalent to Optimus versus his Sentinel Prime. Yeah. So she fights her equivalent in that way without using any elemental powers. And after she beats her, she reveals that of course she has this.
Obviously, I think that she should be very skilled in combat, which is why I would put her second, not first.
Okay, I would say I could see her being behind Tahu, but maybe in front of Kopaka, or behind both Tahu and Kopaka.
Yeah, I do like the idea of Tahu and Kopaka being matched as far as combat skill, simply because that works with their character arcs pretty well. So I would personally keep them first with Gali second.
Right.
I still think Leo should be last, or at least above or behind Pohatu.
I think so too.
I also, is it just me or like for charisma, would Onua really be lower than Kopaka? Isn't Kopaka supposed to be like the icy dude who like doesn't relate to people and like
the thing with Onua the thing with Onua though is that
especially that far behind.
Well. It's a tough one because keep in mind that with our current story, Kopaka is still a prince. So he does have some kind of charisma, I would assume.
True.
But he's also not good at being a prince, which is why his lack of charisma could tie into that. I think like he might have the like you can still be imposing and intimidating without having charisma. Which I feel like Kopaka would have. He would call intimidation. He would have this raw intelligence and this kind of icy cold thing, but that doesn't necessarily have charisma attached to it. I'm trying to think of a equivalent character that kind of lines up with that.
So we'll see. It depends. Like I'm looking at the definition of charisma just to see, like, because I don't know if what I'm imagining fits with the definition or not, but I feel like it kind of does. Like the definition: compelling attractiveness or charm that can inspire devotion in others, and a divinely conferred power or talent.
That's fair.
And, yeah.
Okay.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
How about this? The difference between Batman and Nightwing. I could say you could argue Batman has charisma. Batman can motivate people. But it's a very different thing. Between Superman or Nightwing. Those kinds of characters who have this more of like a boyish charm to them. Kind of like for instance, Tony Stark has natural charm, but he's not as There's a difference between his type of charm and like what you would call.
Yeah, but I also think
Batman's
there's a difference between
like,
charm and charisma. With your example, I would say Nightwing has a lot of charm. Batman has a lot of charisma.
Which is why I feel like maybe we should change around. I feel like when he's like trying to place people on this scale, charisma means charm. That's what I'm trying to argue here. I think that's what he's kind of going for, which is why Pohatu's at the very front, because while he does have a lot of charisma, he does have charm. Taku's a better leader in general than Pohatu could ever be, and Taku would inspire people, but in terms of pure charm, Pohatu is easily on top.
You're right. This is this charisma might not
It
be.
sounds like splitting hairs to me, honestly.
It's not the best word. Yeah, it's not. I guess like it's the concept he's going for when he ranked these. When he was thinking charisma, he was thinking charm. That's why Onua's Onua's last co-podcast. Not really. I would say if we were going by that ranking, we could add that to that.
I also feel like
Add charisma to
Pohatu
charm.
should be faster than Gali. Maybe not Lewa, but like in pure speed, like that's his shtick. The only buddy who should stand a chance of beating him is the person who can literally like fly.
No, yeah, I think Pohatu should be top in speed.
Yeah, I think he should be faster than Lewa.
Yeah, I do too.
Lewa is definitely the most agile. Dexterity, that's perfect for her.
Yeah, but not
Yeah,
speed.
that's a good question. Like, if you're just running down a straight line, I don't know, just a race, Pohatu could probably beat Lewa. But if you're doing a parkour obstacle course, Lewa could probably beat
Lee would
Pohatu.
win. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
That's a cool idea.
But like reaction time, I would say Pohatu's way more quick with reaction time and like speed and everything natural because we can go into his backstory. But
Yeah, Pohatu.
Yeah, let's talk about Pohatu a little bit. Let's figure something out here.
I want to make him the superstar.
I've always thought of him as kind of a Coley superstar, kind of like a David Beckham kind of, or his personality kind of be like Lucio, but like instead of doing music, he's a very popular sports star because I feel
He's
like
an
that
athlete.
was a
Yo,
huge thing.
guys.
He's an athlete.
Real quick, I hate to interrupt this discussion, but
No, you don't.
I do have to leave. And before I do, I just wanted to hear some thoughts on these.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Brief pause.
Here we
I'm
go.
gonna leave.
Time
Okay.
to interrupt our Toa personality discussion for more Matoran. Which I'm
Yeah.
sure is what everybody wants to hear, but alright.
I really like the little subtle cape for the fire Matoran
Ooh.
Is that a cape or is that okay, there you
Yes.
go.
I'm
Scarf.
thinking more like a little
scarf. Yeah.
Is it an
either a
ascot?
scarf or the thing that was it that some clone troopers have? Like
Okay.
Commander
Yeah,
Cody.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Pauldron.
I don't know what it's called. There you go.
It's a
Pauldron.
pauldron.
Shoulder piece.
Pauldron.
Pauldron's
yeah.
a piece of armor. It's not like fabric.
Yeah, but that's what the stormtrooper piece is. It's a pauldron, but it is meant to. It kind of looks like fabric.
These look cool. I will echo Eljay's sentiment that he's not here and just be like, they're really dark. But do I have a problem with that personally? Not really.
I don't.
They look,
Personally, I don't either.
they look
I think
cool,
they.
but
I
they're
don't-
like
I
there's
don't-
a lot
I
of
think
black.
the darkness is. I really think the darkness helps the colors pop more, but
It does.
Same.
okay.
I
Only
agree.
because of the
I think the
Toa.
contrast.
Anything,
Not even. I'm just looking at the especially with the Matoran. I feel like they really do pop.
So, do you guys think that the stone Matoran should be brighter?
No, I feel like the colors with them, like, those are their colors. They got, brown and tan. I don't know what the dude on the right's supposed to be.
Oh, whoops. He's not supposed to
But-
be there.
Yeah.
That's just the default Matoran.
Oh, okay. At least we get to see what your concept looks like.
Yeah.
The one on the right, I was gonna say that one's a little too dark. I feel like he
Oh,
does need
yeah,
some
no,
color
he's
there,
not
but
supposed to be there.
if he's not supposed to be there, then awesome. The other two work perfectly fine, I feel.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good
I
color
guess
choices.
looking at the Pomatoran, I will say that Huki looks fine. I'm assuming that's Huki or Pohatu before Nilku. But the one with the tan maybe could use a bit more color on him.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a little too much darkness there.
Alrighty.
All
But
right.
I think
Alright,
it's definitely good.
cool.
I really like that center Matoran one with the darker blue, the darker brown, the Huki
Yeah.
Nilku-esque one.
The scarf thing on him, too, looks good.
Yeah, I really
Cool.
like that scarf.
Yeah, I imagine that as like a doubling as a scarf and a hood, actually. So maybe the back printing would show that it's supposed to be a hood. Because I'd imagine if
Nice.
these people are living in sand, they wouldn't want to get sand all over their faces and stuff.
Yeah, they don't like sand.
It's coarse.
It's coarse and rough and gets everywhere. No,
I
man,
also
I
like
think
the
it's good.
camo belt
I like
guard,
the
dude.
concept of the hood
He
a
looks
lot.
cool.
Nice little
Like, I actually want
accessory
that Matoran, like, even if he was all
for them
black
to,
and stuff.
to have.
So, like that.
I like
All
it.
right. Good work, man.
Yeah,
KUTGW
cool.
12 out of
Thanks,
10.
I will see you all later. You have
Fare thee
a good
well.
time.
I guess LJ will leave
Have fun
with
in real
you.
life.
Oh yeah, I'm taking LJBot with me.
Bye, LJ. We'll miss you.
Bye.
I did
Say
think
bye
for
to
one second
LJBot,
that,
everyone.
that LJ just went to Vince's house.
Guys, stop calling me LJBot. It's fairly evident that I'm a human.
LJ turned British for a second there. I like it.
I silenced him.
You
Bye,
will.
everyone.
Wow.
Later, guys.
See you, Vin.
All right. Carry on.
I just realized I said later, guys, as though there's two.
LJ's here in
Yeah,
spirit.
LJ's leaving. That's the LJ.
Yep.
All right. Back on our train of thought for
Back to
Pohatu.
Pohatu. Rock star, figuratively and literally.
So what? He's still a rock
He's a
star.
literal rock star. I love it. Yeah, so he's an athlete, very popular athlete. We're retaining Coley, right? That's a thing we're going to keep.
Yeah,
I would
totally
say so.
saw it.
That seems really cool.
Yeah, I think that was a good concept from G1.
Are we
Might
gonna
as well
keep it? Are we gonna? Okay, G1. Are we gonna do Coley like the soccer type thing, or are we gonna do Coley the hockey type thing?
I think it should be like a soccer type thing.
I think soccer's better too. So
Yeah.
okay, I was hoping you'd say that.
Which one was shown in which?
They were both shown in G1, and at
One
first,
I or two? And is there an H?
There's also an H.
Oh, yeah, they
the
changed
first one in Mnog 1 had it like soccer essentially. It was
Yeah.
literally just
It was
soccer.
03 when they
Mnog
made
2
it like the hockey one
Hockey.
with Mnog
Yeah.
2.
and also with the
Hockey
masculine
/ not
game.
what is it? Lacrosse.
Yeah.
lacrosse a bit. We could kind of do a mix between them where it's soccer, but like we have the 3 goals, because they had 3 teams: the Pomatoran team, the Tomatoran team, and like you have like and they're like they could be like a circular goals or
That
something.
could work.
And it's like a tri thing, and so that's their stadium and everything, and you have several attackers and several defenders, and
Yeah.
so it's like soccer, but it's different. And we take elements from both, we make it work.
Okay, that's fine.
Why not?
So Pohatu is he's obviously this athlete guy. A lot of people really want to bring in Akmu, and
In what context?
that's the thing. There's a lot of there's a lot of different ideas as far as Akmu's involvement, what it means in Pohatu's universe. I think we should bring in Akmu as some kind of rival character to Pohatu in some way.
Yeah.
Well, I would
that
say
would carry
my
over
obvious
into
thing
his
is to
total
have him.
transformation.
I was saying that like my obvious thing is to have him as part of the cult, because if any Matoran is closely tied to Makuta
It's
in terms
Akmu.
of like in a cult, it is Akmu. Akmu is long since been the one Matoran
The only
that had
reason
direct
why I
ties to
don't
Makuta.
want to do that is because we already have the Rakshi in the story as being like these servants of Makuta who like converted. If
Well-
Akmu was really that strong of a supporter, he would either number one want to become a Rakshi or B already become one and is Panrak, one or the other.
Well, here's what I was thinking though, because I was thinking that the names of all the Roxy characters would be the 2004 kind of like promised Matoran.
Yeah.
You know, the ones that were supposed to become the Toa, and that would be the real names, quote
Tahuti,
unquote, of all the
Visala,
Roxy.
Akmu, yeah.
Right,
That does
right.
limit Akmu's
So-
potential a little bit. Because like he is like the cultish dude, but his actual like story was about betraying people and like he infiltrates, like he poisoned the Coley Ball stuff.
Yeah.
I would think that if we didn't want to make Akmu Rakshi, I think that would make sense. But if we wanted to save him for future story, he should be around if we wanted to keep him as a Matoran, but he shouldn't really become prominent until the Matoran Civil War, where he should be instrumental in starting that up. He should be under Makuta's
you can-
influence and
let me
be
think.
actively like.
Will the Roxy
igniting
still?
that.
Do you think? Will the Roxy still be around post the first year?
Yes,
You think
I don't think the Rakshi
Yeah.
will go anywhere.
after Makuta comes back?
I
Do you
imagine,
think
they'll
I
also
imagine
they
the
could
Rakshi will
sacrifice?
get upgrades eventually and be re-released.
Okay.
They're too important to
in that
ditch.
case,
My thing
see,
is,
the
I
thing is-
do like the concept of the Raiders and that people have presented before as being
Agreed
like a
as
side
well.
thing.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
I like the idea of having a Matoran villain that isn't our main antagonist, but is sort of a thing that can tie us back from the overall story back into like the world itself, like the smaller story, where the Toa are
Right,
still interacting
right.
with
The
their
B
villages
story.
and things. And that, yeah, and that's what exactly the B story. And that's what I think Akmu would be a great person to serve. Is sort of like bringing us back to Earth a little bit,
Okay.
and focusing on the local problems a bit more.
Okay.
So I do like the idea of the Raiders. I do like the idea of Akmu. I also have that vision of Akmu having like a mech type thing, like a boxer
Yeah.
to fight to fight Pohatu or something.
That'd be cool.
he's
So
Ironmonger.
I think those are. Yeah, pretty much.
Well,
So
I
I
like this
think-
really good comment here by Scorpion Strike. Akmu wanted to be a star Koli player. Pohatu became the star player. Pissed off, Akmu wanted to become a Rakshi. Someone else became the Rakshi. Now Akmu is really angry at everybody and stoking civil war. But no,
See,
I like what you're saying.
That's a funny comment. I still don't think. I think Akmu should be separate from the Rakshi. I think they should be two groups. The Raiders and the Cultists. I think those should be two different groups.
So
Here's
Akmu
what I
wouldn't have
think.
anything to
At
do
this
with
point, are we like? Is it not worthwhile just using a different Matoran name instead of Akmu? Because Akmu, I feel like when you use a name and you use the name in order to refer to a certain thing, so the audience kind of knows what's coming. Like in the Marvel
the
movies,
Akmu
right?
name has
characters.
very specific connotations as a Makuta.
I feel with
trait.
Makuta, I feel like the character you're talking about can still be around and can still be a very important character in Pohatu's arc. I just don't know if it needs to be named Akmu. When you take away all the thing that comes with Akmu, really.
I hear what you're saying, and honestly, I feel the exact opposite. Well, not entirely. I agree with the points that you're making, but I feel like the suggestion of making Akmu a Rakshi is the worst end of the stick there when trying to retain Akmu's relationship with Makuta and the connotation that his character presents. I feel like any Matoran that's going to become a Rakshi, the Matoran name isn't going to be important at all once they become that Rakshi. The
that's what I
Matoran
was
character isn't going to be important at all. The
Yeah,
names
at first,
of the
but
Matoran...
at first I was like, oh, it makes sense if it was a Rakshi, but then I was like, well, maybe we should keep him as like an inside.
No,
man,
I actually
informer.
get that because Akmu is still a very important name.
Yeah,
the other Promise Matoran aren't, but
Right. There's
his
more
is.
to Akmu than just being evil. It's he's got a deeper character than that, and I feel like you're doing him a disservice by making him a Rakshi, which is essentially just a servant of Makuta. Because Akmu was never just a servant of Makuta. He was a little more than that. He was out for himself. He was very selfish. He was working with Makuta for his own personal gain. Didn't quite work out for him. Cool. I think you can still play with that concept, still have him... Because remember, Makuta is still inciting the Civil War going into Season 2 as well.
right.
And I think he can still work with Akmu without Akmu having to be a part of the cult.
Akmu could be like a counter to Helrix. Like Akmu could kind of be the spider, this
is what I'm thinking.
The little finger to Varys.
Exactly.
You know.
This is what I'm thinking, is because I feel like there should be some kind of mini arc, like a very, not even like it could be a B plot, could be a C plot, some kind of mini conflict going on in each Koro, where you've got the Tahu conflict that intermixes with the Kopaka conflict of the whole Civil War brewing thing, but mostly the deeper levels of like the villages being raided by the Rahi attacks. That's their conflict. Gali can have a conflict with Helrix, the Helrix character in her region, and the Arbiter thing. Maybe there's corruption in their society or something. The corruption in the in the Arbiters. That would be an interesting plot line.
That would be an interesting plot.
Pohatu, his B plot is Akmu. Something is going on there. Akmu is in charge of the raiders or something. He has a secret life, maybe, where like by day he's this Koli Star who's just not as good as Pohatu, really resents him, that kind of thing. But by night he is part of this like raider group that is, you know, stealing exports or doing bad things to get his edge.
Here, let me pitch this. What if Akmu is not necessarily a Koli Star that's rivals with Pohatu, but maybe more like his manager almost? You know how like sports people have a manager and that, you know, that they're heavily involved, or like a coach, right? And so right now that's where the betrayal comes in, because he's connected. Sports is so big in that region, the Stone Village region. So maybe actually, but like, he's, so Akmu is like coaching him and being able to do this thing, and but he's, because he's so connected, he also has these other things he's doing with the raiders. He's the other things he's doing with, and he's also informing Bakuda essentially for his grand return. So like, that
I like that
would be he said like a Mark Cuban, how Mark Cuban has the Mavericks.
Exactly.
Akmu would kind of be like that guy for Pohatu's team.
Okay. I can kind of see that, almost like a different comparison, maybe a little too far into the like evil realm, but sort of like a oh man, what's his name? Matt Murdock's dad, the boxer character.
Yeah. Battling Jack Murdock. Yeah.
Whatever. Name's not important.
Jack Murdock.
Yeah, Jack Murdock, and like his connection to like the mob, sort of how they are sort of like using him to make cash. And his actual like livelihood wasn't really important. It was just so much that as long as he was winning the games when he needed to and lost the games when he needed to, that can be sort of a similar relationship, sort of where Pohatu doesn't quite know the ins and outs of what's going on with his manager per se. He's just there for the sport, but the manager's using him for a profit or something.
It's like it mirrors what's going on right now. FIFA and the World Cup, they're very, very corrupt, and like where the World Cup gets held and all that stuff. But the players, they're just playing. But like overall, there's this thing where they accept bribes and they do all that stuff. So yeah, I think that could it's a real world element that can kind of be echoed here.
See, I like that so much. This Bionicle feels very nuanced. We have like sports intrigue and like this like all this crazy stuff.
It's world building, man. That's what G2 missed was this whole. I don't know. They might in the story Bible. They might have had all this attention to detail.
They just never conveyed it.
Never conveyed it. So I feel like it's good.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So so his relationship with Akmu is sort of like a manager like person that works with him, is sort of like the sideline guy, but in reality is using him to sort of make a quick buck. He's got connections with the raiders, that kind of thing. So like essentially the raiders are sort of like the mob, kind of.
The Bionicle Mafia.
Yeah, the Bionicle Mafia.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. What was let me see. What was so with Tiro, their whole thing is exports, right? They're miners.
Yeah,
there's a lot of
they're miners.
There's a lot of room for corruption there, as far
also
as like,
land transport.
Thing.
Like I would say, all the stones and stuff, they transport stuff.
Is it Tiro or Matoran?
Matoran.
It's Matoran. Okay. Yeah.
Wait.
Right.
Yeah. I need to get these names memorized. I feel bad. Like I haven't done the villages.
I know like 3. It's okay.
Oh, memorizing the names. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, memorizing the names. So
happens. It took us forever to memorize the protector names,
and it was all for naught. Too.
It was for nothing. They didn't do anything.
Mizuna, Kivoda, blah blah blah. All right. I like that a lot. I just like, I don't want Nick Akmu to necessarily be like full on evil. I just want him to have like something to do with like maybe he's just like independent contractor who Makuta like comes to later on to like sow seeds of discord or whatever.
I mean, that's the thing, right? He's not evil in the sense that he's going out of his way to kill everybody he sees, like Makuta would be. He's evil in the sense that he's selfish. He's doing things for his own personal gain. He wants money. He's greedy, that kind of thing. So he's got
does fit.
Yeah, so he's got that kind of thing going for him. And I think maybe Pohatu can spite him somehow. Something can go on between those two characters where, like, Pohatu is supposed to do something, like throw a match.
Battle Jack? Yeah, exactly. Throw a match, and he doesn't. Like, no. Right.
Yeah.
And he's
that's
written on
where
Aku's, like,
that
blacklist.
sort of evil connection comes in.
Yeah.
So,
I like that. I like that they're not just rivals, because like rivals, we see that a lot in Bionicle, and it's like, but now that Aku's in a position of power too over Pohatu, he can kind of like, I like where this is going, where like he asked Pohatu to do a favor for him, and Pohatu's like, no, he's like, what? I've done so much for you, I helped you make your career, and he's like, I'm not gonna throw a match just because, whatever you're doing, that's super shady.
Yeah, maybe Pohatu starts to learn a bit more about like what his manager is actually involved with, and that sort of
Akmu could have been the person that. He could have been the person that spotted Pohatu, like his talent, like a talent coach. He kind of spotted him as a young age, kind of helped him get his career started. Even without any elemental powers, he was able to push him to the top of the game. And Pohatu's not this mega star, but now there's this tension because he wants Pohatu to do something, throw a game, do this.
Dude, this is so cool. It's interesting. It's interesting stuff for the stone people. I love it. I never thought that would have been possible.
Yeah. Different kind of pitch. What if maybe Akmu and Pohatu have known each other for since they were kids almost, and they have Akmu has a history of sort of using Pohatu, or like getting him to do things because Pohatu I'm kind of thinking of My Hero Academia. Midoriya's character is this sort of really good go-to guy, and he has this deep friendship with Bakugo, who does not share it at all, right?
Quote unquote friendship.
Yeah, it's a very one-sided friendship where Midoriya at least when they're little kids, where Midoriya thinks Bakugo is this really cool dude and everything, but Bakugo just does not want anything to do with Midoriya. Maybe that could retain over to Akmu and Pohatu in the sense that Pohatu sees himself as a friend of Akmu's. Akmu doesn't really care about Pohatu at all, but he does use Pohatu to his advantage. He can get him to do things because he makes it seem like they're friends, that kind of thing, and that translates into when they're older, as Pohatu is using his talent to become the star, and Akmu sees this as an opportunity for some cash, and he's already got connections to the mob, shady organizations, everything. So that could be sort of how that relationship forms.
I do think you lose the element of betrayal, though. I feel like that, when you're talking beforehand how part of Akmu's character is this betrayal of the Matoran and other people. And I feel like if you have, kind of this mentorship that goes wrong, unlike Lewa's, contrasted with Lewa's mentorship, by Bingzak, which does go right. This contrast between them where, Pohatu kind of thought Akmu was his friend, coach, and mentor for so long. And then suddenly, as soon as he doesn't do what he says, suddenly he's cut from, team. He's kind of been, his popularity starts to go down because Akmu's pulling all these streams to make him look bad. So
what do you mean?
I do feel like.
That?
Well, I mean, if
well, it's because when you
the example you brought up with Bakugo and Midoriya,
it's less about Bakugo betraying Midoriya and more about Midoriya just being a naive idiot.
That example wasn't meant to. Bakugo's character is not translating at all. That was just an example. I'm using Midoriya and his
as the character
to translate. Yeah. Midoriya as a kid, his relationship with Bakugo is similar to Pohatu's as a kid to Akmu's in the sense that it's a one-sided relationship where I think you might have cut out when I was saying this, where Pohatu sees Akmu as his friend and he's always going out of his way to help him. Akmu sees Pohatu as a tool, someone to use.
Okay. Yeah.
So you still retain the coach aspect of it and everything, but it's just that they have a history of Pohatu being used by Akmu and Pohatu not realizing he's being used by Akmu.
Okay, all right. That fits in perfectly then. Yeah, I must have liked that when you were talking about that initially. I caught the tail end of it, so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sort of where
Fine by me. That sounds awesome, dude. It's so fresh.
Do we want to go Onua before wrapping up, or do we want to kind of cut it short here?
Let's see. What time are we at?
Hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah, we can probably fit in a bit of Onua stuff.
Let's try to cram them real quick.
Okay. So the one idea that we definitely have for Onua that we want to, I know we were really like in favor of. Now we just got to figure out a way to tie it in. Is that Onua is the family man, in the sense that he's the one character here who is the oldest out of all the Toa. He has, wife, kids, and a life inside his region. And the big thing about his character once he becomes a Toa is that he's now going to be sort of at odds with that, where like he won't be able to be with his family the way he was before. His life really changes the most once he becomes a Toa. And part of that relationship between, I feel like I always imagine a really strong relationship with Kopaka in this sense, because in a way, Kopaka not having a father or losing a father really respects Onua, who is a father. But he obviously keeps that respect to himself. So I always had that envision, that mental image of Onua meditating one night all by himself by the campfire, and he's just so into it that he sort of comes, like he wakes up in the morning after a long night of just meditation, deep meditation, and there's just like a meal waiting for him right there, and he has no clue who left it for him, and it was Kopaka who did it. I always had that image of just like some nice like friendship between those two. It's sort of like this unspoken thing.
Nice. That's cool.
I think it works too. They also have that parallel. They have a parallel between like having responsibilities outside of them they need to return to. Most of the other Toa, they can lead the responsibilities. Tahu's been outcast. Gali's kind of outcasted a little bit. Lewa doesn't have any responsibilities. Yeah. Pohatu has been dropped by his label, quote unquote. He's been dropped by Akmu, essentially, and so they all don't have responsibilities to return back to. But Onua and Kopaka do. And they'll end up different places. Kopaka will leave the kingdom behind. Onua, I think, really wants to return to his family. I don't know if we decided if he'll go back to his family at the end or if he'll continue being a Toa afterwards. We did not decide that.
Well, yeah. I would imagine he would probably have to move on to some extent.
We could have a thing halfway through with the Civil War where like Onua's sitting this one out. He just wants to be with his family. He's like, we fought the Rakshi, we stopped them because they don't know Makuta's back yet.
Dude, what if Makuta kills his family? That'd be so sad. That's so tragic. That's so dark. That'd be so dark.
That's great. I want them to die now.
But the families are for, dude. It's a plot device.
I really want them to die.
It's like Hawkeye's family. Thanos is gonna kill them eventually.
I love Onua. I want him to be happy, which means he can't be happy. We have to kill his family.
He can't be happy. No, he has.
We can't allow him to be happy.
He has to like how sad is that? He's away from his family. He wants to get back to him. He finally gets back to him, and
the house is in ruins.
No, like Makuta. This is like the final plot of Makuta's like plan, where he like. What if he uses the mask of control to try to like control one of the Evertoa?
Oh no, dude!
Kill his family.
What if he controls Kopaka to kill Onua's family?
No, geez.
Like Tahu, not necessarily to kill his family, but to attack the village, and in that his family dies. And then there's like the strife between the Toa.
Raise the village.
So, I don't think Lego would not have Tahu killing a couple of kids. That's but like if he starts a fire in the village and he starts to like ravage it, and in that something happens and that they die, then that would be great tension that they'd have to get through.
Man,
that's good.
I don't know if I actually want to like go through with that, but that would be one of the
I don't know either. I don't know. That's a great pitch though.
Otherwise, you just have that like thing where he has to go.
Let's hear from the audience. What do you guys think in terms of
the audience did point out? Someone made a joke. Wadon made a joke that Kopaka says, "You are my new dad now," and Onua's like, "Okay then." And also someone mentioned, Lack of Purple mentioned Onua adopts all of them. I think while most of those comments are made in jest, I think that actually is kind of
that's basically the
base
deep.
Yeah.
When I always think about it, I think of Lewa, but with everybody else, yes, that is.
Yeah, it's like I imagine because Onua, because of his transformation to becoming a Toa, he isn't quite able to connect with his family the same way he used to, and also while being on his adventure with the Toa themselves, he can't just go back to his family. So a lot of it is the Toa ends up becoming his new family, sort of his surrogate family.
But, actually, that makes it better overall for the arc of the character, because it would be bad if he abandoned his family for a new one. But if his family, something happens to them, it does make the ending where he's sticking with the Toa a bit more.
Right.
Yeah.
At least I have you guys.
Yeah, basically.
And then all the Toa get killed by Makuta. He's like, no.
He's very much the dad of the Toa.
He's kind of
sense.
like Drax the Destroyer a little bit.
Except less,
Less of a
Just
destroyer,
less-
more of
Yes, the
a
Destroyer.
peace. Actually, he's very much not
So really-
Drax the Destroyer.
maybe not. I'm just thinking about how Drax's family was killed. His new family's the Guardians. That's what I was drawing from that.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like the
Yeah,
Midoriya
that
example.
makes sense. Yeah. So, as far as what his connection to society is in his region, I don't know. I always kind of saw him as sort of this, like, I don't know, either a teacher, a philosopher, or some kind of level of instructor.
A monk, almost, but like
monk.
a professor-ish.
Yeah,
kind of
professor. I
person.
don't really see him so much as a monk because he has a family. So, like, I feel like
Right.
monk is a little
the
too.
two don't go together.
Yeah, I feel like that's a little too far away from what we wanted him to be.
What would they teach in the Earth Village? In their
Didn't we
schools?
say something about a medical field the last time?
We
What did we
did.
say last time?
Medicinal
I do
herbs.
remember.
Oh, what do we want
medicinal
this? What do
herbs
we
and
want
that
these
kind of thing.
children to be doctors? And they grow up and like they die. I was like, oh, you're gonna be the best
And it was like,
doctor ever.
You a doctor yet? And then like little.
No, I'm gonna go hang out with my
What
new
if? What if his family's death is sort of
Little Harvali's like no. No. Okay, if we
I
are
was
gonna
thinking
do
we should kill off his family before he becomes a Toa, but
no. It needs
I
to
feel like
happen
the
during.
Civil
That's
War
great
is the
tension
best.
during it.
yeah,
Civil War is the best. That could be an element of like how like war is evil, or like not war is evil, but like the war, how personal it's made for Onua, who kind of his personality doesn't want to
Yeah.
be a part of the war. But it's the thing, we can't ignore this anymore. This is real.
Yeah. My only thought was like, okay, well, he kind of should be a monk though because he meditates all the time, but like he does have a family. What if his family died first and then he became a monk? But then it's like, well, I don't know. You don't really need him to be a monk to meditate. I think meditation is just part of the culture for that region. They're all very earthy, very.
They all do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, like yoga.
earthy.
Very earthy
It's just
people.
like
Well, your definition of earthy is different.
When I'm
Or maybe
thinking
it's
of
just that it's
Earth,
changed
I'm
over
thinking
time.
of. I'm totally thinking of hippies. When I say earthy.
like little communes. and,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that's what I'm thinking of
little
earthy.
Chiba
like,
gorillas.
we live off
like
the
the
earth,
herbs
man.
and,
Oh boy.
That's what I'm thinking of earthy when I'm using that word.
Like I wonder if like we could have like really educated hippies though. Like
Yeah, I
the
mean that's
equivalent of
essentially how I.
doctors and everything.
Well,
Astrophysicist and
it's sort of like a
doctor.
middle ground where like I see them as like an in between of like really educated hippies and like a little bit of monks and a little bit of just like very nature infused culture.
So gorillas from Chima.
Gorillas from Chima, sure. Maybe a little Native American inspired stuff.
Nah, I think those all we could take elements from all of that and kind of
Yeah, kind of
create
mix.
this Earth culture around that.
Yeah, kind of push them all together, mix them together, kind of thing.
Fine by me.
But as far as his role, though, I'm still not quite sure what I would want him to be.
I mean, I think the idea of having him as a teacher, as a professor, or as something they like, could be very.
He's like the chieftain character.
Maybe we have the chieftain. I think we already have too many people high up in the government roles. We already have Tahu and Kopaka, who kind of are. Kopaka is the highest. We have Tahu, who's a very famous general. We have Gali, who's an arbiter. We have Lewa, who's not doing anything, and Pohatu, who's a famous celebrity. So, do we really want to have a chieftain, or
I
do we?
want Onua to be a
we could just
regular
like a
dude.
Well,
teacher?
I think
I don't
yes,
want Onua to have much relevance.
I didn't really think of a chieftain as someone being very high in power. I was kind of just thinking of like a very small, like I was thinking of Native American once again, very small like village type tribe area where he's just sort of like teaching the younglings the ways of their
That could
culture
work.
and that kind of thing.
I just had this idea of like Harvali as like Indiana Jones, where she's like the professor, but she also goes on the crazy archaeological expeditions.
That'd be great.
That's
Harvali Jones.
she does like the both. She does both of them.
Harvali. I like that a lot. But yeah, Onua. It could be cool. I don't know.
I think that could work. Like
Small
it's
scale
definitely me by
village
chieftain.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear chieftain, I think of like the village chief. So
Nah.
okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of like that. Like when I think chieftain, I'm thinking like the elder of the region, sort of. But like not the region, the like the tribe.
Fair enough.
There could be a university in the Earth Village. There could be like a place because I did have this thing where Onua is very well read. He possibly is the most well read out of all of the Toa. Knows about a lot of history. Knows a lot of the old things that happened. He could be like part of the not exposition per se, but he could be like there is this myth that way back in the day the elemental creatures came and rebelled against the gods and all that stuff.
And then they used the vision of the mask of time to see the future. No.
So just to go back in my like chieftain word again, just to sort of define what I'm thinking a bit more. I'm sort of like kind of like a terrible movie, but Ice Age. You guys remember
Never
that
seen
movie?
it, but I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
what it is.
That was a thing.
That was a
Thanks
thing,
for
but like
reminding me, Var.
there's these human characters in the first movie at least, where they're like this like small nomadic tribe type of thing, but it's a very small group of characters, and they're very like kind of family oriented. Another movie, Brother Bear, for instance, where there's like
I did see that.
sort of a tribe where there's like this small
Yeah.
group of people. That's what I'm kind of thinking of. Onua is the chieftain in the sense that he's like the head of a small, very small like family unit, not so much the city or the region. I'm thinking, in fact, I don't even think Onua as a character should live in the city per se, but on a small, very
like a
small
farm.
Yeah, like a farm, a small like area away from most of the civilization.
Okay.
It could
Out
be.
in the
It could be like.
boonies.
I mean, I do like the idea of him as a professor, just so we have that well-read element to it. But it could be that even though his job might be in the city, that's his natural role is his family and the farm. And even though he's maybe not in official capacity, but he's
Well,
looked
do
to
keep
as
in
a
mind
chieftain.
he's also the oldest of all the Toa, so you could still retain the idea that he is a professor or was a professor and did live in the city at one point and did teach people and is well known and has he could have books written out,
Possibly right.
theories, yeah, and exactly, yeah. But now he's sort of living a quiet life with a small tribe of people.
He's retired almost.
Yeah.
A little earlier than usual, but he has retired.
Yeah, so he's kind of left his mark on society. Now he's just sort of like he's with his family. That's the big thing about his character, is that he's a family guy.
I think that all comes together,
With
and
their
then rip
deaths.
the family.
I'm
Gotta
really
make him.
I'm really
yeah.
attached to that idea now.
Meso, man, that was your contribution, huh? Let's kill off his family.
I can't wait to see him die.
No, it's like,
Character development.
it's such a trope, but like it works so well. Like you just know, like Hawkeye's family is gonna die in like Infinity War or whatever. They have to.
Oh man.
You don't introduce those people like that to not kill
What if
them.
they don't?
Tropes are only bad
They work.
if you are only using the trope and don't develop it any further. If you're
Also,
only
tropes. Sorry, go on. Finish.
go ahead. That's pretty much what I'm going to say.
Tropes are not cliches in that sense. There are things that are cliche. We try to avoid cliches because they're done so often. But tropes are things that we see, just patterns we recognize again and again in media.
Because
and
they
partially
work.
is because it works. Now, I'm not going to deny part of it is a little like with a family dying is a very common trope. It might be seen as cliche, but as long as there is not like it's just because it's cliche is no reason not to use it. It's only when you use it without any imagination or creativity or using it to further the plot. I don't like a love triangle, for instance, is a trope, a cliche that people hate. But I mostly like I hate it when it doesn't do anything. And Ninjago.
Yeah, Ninjago, exactly. That love triangle does zero for the plot or for the
plot
characters.
or the characters.
Or at the beginning of Legend of Korra.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Legend of Korra, same deal. Now, I don't think it's so with Aang and Katara. I feel like that romance, even though it apprentices to a triangle of Jet sometimes and Zuko a little bit, I don't feel like that is wasted because all those things do develop the characters. You know, love triangles can develop a character, and when it's done right, it is done pretty well, in my opinion. But whenever it's forced, whenever it doesn't do anything to the plot, wherever it kind of feels like instead of it's just like a drama for drama's sake, that's when people hate it. That's when it starts to become cliche. So in this thing, Onua's family would be part of his character development. You know, part of his character growth and his relationship with the Toa.
Exactly.
So I don't feel... I mean, it might be a trope, but tropes are not inherently bad. Neither are cliches. It's how you use them.
Exactly. That's pretty much what I was going to say. So I'm glad you took it.
Preach it.
No.
Nice.
Well, all right then. We're far from done, but at least now we have a framework of most of these characters, something to work off of, and I think they're all really solid, really different interpretations of them, but still in keeping with the core of who they were way back when. I think overall it's massive success.
So
Toa characters.
next week upcoming, I kind of want to talk side characters a little bit. We touched upon a couple side characters here. I'd like to kind of delve a bit more into that.
We need a bunch
kind of give like
characters.
framework, and then we can have the audience kind of chip in maybe with designs or maybe what they want to see from these characters as we flesh them out. But I feel like that might be a good next step.
Yep, because
Yeah.
right
That
now we've
and,
got our protagonists, we've got our big overarching deity people, and then we've got our main villains for like the first year of the rock sheet.
We've also got a lot of our villagers, not villagers, villages, and how the Toa are placed
Fleshed
in there.
out.
So
We need to do side characters. We need to also, I think, figure out some personalities for the Rakshi. Not that we're gonna get super into their backstory because they're like they're the villains, but the story's gonna be around the Toa. But I do not want the Rakshi to be generic either. Maybe
Generic
not a
villains?
tragic backstory, but I
One
want
of
them
them
to be
just has a
individual
bad
characters.
case of indigestion, and it's making him angry.
Nice.
Vorak, obviously.
you know,
Yes, of
Right,
course.
hunger.
I actually don't necessarily mind the kind of hammy suggestion that you had there, Takuma, to
Hammy.
be honest.
No, wait a minute. Now that I'm thinking about, what if we kind of turned it on their head? Like the original Rakshi powers are anger, fear, hunger, disintegration, explosions, and poison.
Yes,
What
that's
if we
the kind
took
of
those
stuff.
and put it on their head? So Vorak's got indigestion. How do we mess up? How do we mess up? Oh gosh. How do we mess up fear?
I'll say,
I think-
Like if
you're talking about inverting them, and
like
that's
hunger
we can,
is to indigestion as fear is to
confidence, but like you're talking about like flipping them, and I'm cool with that too. If we can we can talk about that like next time, figure out how to make it work. But like I'm okay, like you mentioned, like indigestion. That's funny. I'm okay with just having their
I'm not
old
serious about
powers.
indigestion, but
Yeah, I know, but like I'm okay with their old powers being like all of their character. Like I was talking about with Vin, like Vorak should just be like eating a mutton chop. Like sometimes because he's like hunger, or like Turok should be
just
like a
always
scaredy
walking around
cat
with
character.
like a big old
I'm
turkey leg.
actually
Like,
I don't know. I feel like hammy villains though.
I'm not saying play them for laughs, but
that's
I'm also
that's why I
not
don't.
saying
That's why I
like,
think it would work, only because like that does seem like something a Lego would do.
that is a Lego thing.
That's
Vorak
you
is
know,
ba-
that's
so-
fair, but I just hate
I'm
that
not.
so
I'm not
much.
saying play the Rakshi up 100% for comedy. They should still be serious and threatening and evil. But like when I think give them personalities, that's more along the lines of what I'm thinking. Not
See,
like
now-
the Paraka where like they're always scheming to betray each
I
other
get ya.
Now
I
I'm-
get ya,
or
I
whatever.
get ya.
Like
I'm
personality
thinking of-
traits.
Now I'm thinking of Vorak as almost being kind of like Tony Stark was in the Avengers, where for some reason he was just always eating something during the movie, you know? Because RDJ hid food around the set, and no matter how much the cast or the crew tried, they couldn't find everything.
Like,
So
when I think
they'd just be in
Vorak-
the middle of a take, and he's eating some blueberries or whatever.
The difference between, to me, Vorak being the hungry guy and then Axel from, like, Nexonites and Axel, every single line of dialogue is about how he's hungry and he wants food and he eats food. With Vorak, I'm thinking, like, while he's killing everybody, he's just munching on, like, a mutton chop.
That would be great.
It's subtle,
Or,
like,
just a
low-key.
snack. There we go. Okay,
You
I
don't
can
have to
buy
hit it
that.
too
I
hard
think
on the
that's
nose.
a good. Right.
Yeah.
Not too hard on the nose. Axel's a little too much because every single line is like, "Oh, are we gonna have food here?" You know, like that.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah,
if he just
that's
like
too
snack-
one-dimensional.
heavy-handed. Yeah.
yeah, but like
You know,
I
next
love like
time we'll do Rock.
he's never told, but like they're raiding a village and he just goes and he like looks. He's like, I'm
Yeah,
just kind of like low-key in the background. He's always snacking on something. Good.
Leave us some feedback, fans, on the Rakshi, their characters. We'll talk about that in the future, but for this week...
Absolutely nothing
did have-
makes Turok happy.
I did have
Nothing.
just a really quick idea. Is like, what if it's sort of like a reverse of Batman? You know how Batman's really scared of bats, right? So that's his whole theme, is that he's evoking what he's afraid of most on and projecting that onto the villains to make them like share his fear almost. That's his thing. Like, what if
Varrock is afraid of an empty plate?
Yeah, sure. So I don't know. The idea was just like, what if, like, when they become the Rakshi, it's like they're becoming what they fear the most, almost.
And they are embodying their previous fear.
Right.
They're embodying something like. I don't know.
The trick with that is disintegration.
Yeah, disintegration's kind of lame.
Well, I mean, maybe you could
is-
just take it, like, kind of move disintegration over to, like, more of an atrophy type of thing. Like, they're afraid of becoming weak.
And so they must be strong.
Yeah,
It's
and
funny,
like hunger is the character is so like is afraid of. I don't know, losing.
I mean, that doesn't even necessarily have to be like a physical or I was gonna say physical hunger, like a hunger for food. It could be like a hunger in general, like
One of them's
life
poison,
not being
right?
full.
What if we make it like poison? Like, oh, he's scared of like getting sick. You make him like a germaphobe.
I mean, yeah, like kind of, yeah. Like in their like in his life as a Matoran, that is something that was part of his character, and that sort of translates into what is.
He must purge the island because like that's why they're all like diseased, sick.
Awesomeness Born said hunger could be never satisfied.
Yeah,
That is part of the
Kind of what I
character.
said.
Okay, let's save this for the next episode because I really don't want to delve deep into this. I'm afraid
Yeah,
we're going to do it. And okay, well,
I finally have something I'm interested in talking about. We're saving it for
okay.
the next episode.
real quick though, before we wrap up, I would like to talk about something that is kind of ending kind of soon. We're all a part of, and that is real quick this BZPower contest.
yeah, we did. The
'cause we
preliminary
all
polls will
entered
be
that.
over by the time this is up.
Yeah, but like if you guys want to just take a look, because the preliminary polls are going right now. Live studio audience, you guys can. We'll link to some of the stuff that we're in. I think LJ and you, Meso, you built mocks.
Ven
Purple
did as well.
Baller and Ven made art. I wrote a story about different things.
What's your story called? The Dreaming Dead.
The Dreaming. I'll link it here. Let me link it in the chat. It's about the origins of Kulta and the Lord of Skull Spiders.
I skipped to the end, like I did with Harry Potter Book 7, read the ending, and I was like, this is neat, and then I've yet to go back to it. So
yeah,
for anyone wanting to
these
read
are
it,
all-
it's neat.
These are it's a prelim poll. My entries first. It's called The Dreaming Dead. Read it. If you guys want to vote for it, go vote for it. I mean, you can vote for whoever you want. Don't want to brigade
Likewise,
anybody
yeah.
here, but I would encourage you to read. To read as many as you can because some stories are pretty good.
With any luck,
I'm biased. I think
I did
mine's
not know
great,
there was a
but-
story contest going on.
with any luck,
Dang.
Var, you and me will be in the
Dude,
finals.
you're like staff. How do you not know this?
I'm not sure if we will be, but I hope we will be.
Wait,
I hope so
We'll
too.
be
You
what?
and me. You and me, we're going to be in the finals, I think. And John, hopefully. I don't think Purple, Vin, and LJ. Well, maybe LJ will get through.
No, you won't.
But we'll see.
I
So,
don't
like,
think so.
and both of our entries are Makuta related, so that's cool. You did, like, a Makuta drawing. I did a Makuta mock. So, woohoo! You go check it out if you want. I'll link the final polls in the description below. If you feel so inclined, we would appreciate the support. But for now, that's basically it. I want you to leave your thoughts on any of these Toa backstories. Leave your thoughts on the Rakshi. We might talk about him next episode. Leave your thoughts on Akmu and his interpretation and integration into the story. Leave your thoughts on the continued Matoran designs. I've been posted a few like work in progress, like pictures of those going on. That's all good. We will see you all next time for the next episode of the TTV podcast. As every week, I'd like to shout out one Patreon from our Patreon at patreon.com/TTV channel. I just said Patreon a lot in the span of a few seconds. But it's a cool place. You can get a lot of awesome perks. This week's shout out goes to Caleb King, who supports us and helps us continue to do what we want to do. If you want to go over there, we're very close to getting the TTV t-shirts back. I'm not sure if we'll do it in time for Brick Fair, but I really want to buy one before Brick Fair. So if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for me. Please and thank you.
Well, that's gonna incentivize people. Awesome. You come from the purple school of incentivizing people.
Yeah, I know, right? But it works for her. Why not me? Just thank y'all for watching. We'll see y'all next week. I'm Meso.
I'm Var.
I'm Jonathan.
Right, guys. I'm Takuma.
And I'm Tenebrae Invictus.
And farewell, everybody. Thank you all for
See you guys
listening.
next week.
What if her volley was legal?
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.